Once upon a time in a quiet village, there lived a kind woman who longed for a child. She wished with all her heart to have a baby, but sadly, she could not get pregnant. So she went to a good witch and asked, "Please, please, give me a child." The witch gave her a tiny barleycorn seed and said, "Plant this seed in a pot of soil, water it every day, and in a few days you will see what I am talking about." The woman did as the witch instructed, and soon a beautiful flower bloomed from the seed. And when the flower opened, to her astonishment, inside was a tiny, delicate girl no bigger than a thumb. The woman was overjoyed. She named her, though small in size, Thumbelina was full of joy and kindness. She spent her days playing with tiny animals, singing beautiful songs and weaving the most amazing things with her small hands. The woman made a tiny bed for Thumbelina out of a walnut shell, and each night she would tuck her in with dandelion fluff. Thumbelina loved living with her mother, but as she grew older, she became more curious about the world outside their home. She would often ask her mother, "What is beyond the garden wall? Or who else might be out there like me?" Her mother would hold her close and say, "My darling, the world isn't a safe place for someone as small as you. You are too tiny to understand how big and scary it is out there." But Thumbelina couldn't help but wonder. One day, while her mother was busy in the garden, Thumbelina decided to explore. She walked right up to the edge of the garden and looked over the wall. Suddenly, a large toad hopped up beside her. "Well, well," he croaked. "What do we have here? A tiny little girl all alone?" Thumbelina was frightened and quickly tried to climb back over the wall. "Please don't hurt me," she cried. But the toad was quick and grabbed her before she could escape. "I know just what to do with a little girl like you," he said with a wicked grin. "You will make the perfect bride for my son." Thumbelina screamed for help, but no one could hear her tiny voice. The toad took her to a beautiful house under the water and introduced her to his son. "This is the girl I told you about," he said. "She's perfect for you." But Thumbelina refused to marry him. She cried and cried, but the toad wouldn't let her go. He tied her to a lily pad and left her there. Thumbelina was all alone. Just when she thought she would drown, a small fish saw her and swam over to help. It cut the vine with its sharp teeth, and Thumbelina was free. She quickly swam away from the toad's clutches and made her way to the other side of the pond. As she wandered through the forest, a strong wind suddenly swept her up and carried her away. Blinded and scared, Thumbelina cried out for help. When she could see again, she realized she was inside a dark hole. She had been taken to the home of a mole who had not seen sunlight in a very long time. He had never seen anyone as beautiful as and even though she was terrified of the darkness, he begged her to stay with him. The mole threatened to keep her locked away forever if she didn't agree to become his bride. Thumbelina refused and ran away. As she walked through the forest, she came across a beautiful butterfly with wings that sparkled in the sunlight. Thumbelina asked the butterfly for help, and as they flew together through the skies, Thumbelina saw fields of flowers, sparkling streams, and vast forests, everything she had ever dreamed of. The butterfly carried her for many hours until finally it landed on the ground. Thumbelina looked around and gasped. Before her lay a magnificent garden full of tiny people just like her. The tiny people cheered and welcomed her with open arms. Thumbelina had found her place among them, and there she met a prince who was just her size. They quickly fell in love, and the prince, who had been searching for her for many years, asked Thumbelina to be his bride. Thumbelina was finally happy. She had found a place where she belonged and a loving prince to share her life with. Together they lived in a tiny palace, surrounded by flowers and sunshine, and Thumbelina was never lonely again. Once upon a time, in a quiet village, there lived a kind woman who longed for a child. She went to a good witch for help, The witch gave her a tiny barleycorn seed and told her to plant it. The woman did as instructed, and soon a beautiful flower bloomed from the seed. When the flower opened, inside was a tiny, delicate girl no bigger than a thumb. The woman named her